Hi, I'm Robbie Bobby, adult child and para-alcoholic. In this video, we'll compare two versions of Step 10 used in ACA. Both are necessary in order to recover from the effects of growing up in an alcoholic or otherwise dysfunctional family. To get the most from this video, I recommend watching the prior videos in this series and to have a printout of each set of steps. Step 10, standard version, aimed at our adult self. Continue to take personal inventory, and when we were wrong, promptly admitted it. And Step 10, Tony A version, aimed at the inner child. Continue to take personal inventory and to love and approve of ourselves. Both versions start with the same suggestion. Continue to take personal inventory. However, the object of the inventory depends upon which version of the step you're practicing, because each has its own goal, at least in my opinion. If you look at the 12 standard steps, you'll see the common thread is character defects or shortcomings. It's what we look for in the big fourth step inventory. It's what we admit the exact nature of in Step 5. It's what we become willing to let go of in Step 6, and then humbly ask God to remove in Step 7. They're the root cause of the harms listed in Step 8, and it's what we must be on the lookout for if we're sincere about the amends we just made in Step 9. Because if we start acting on our defects again, we'll be at risk of causing harm again. It's just a matter of time. We do Step 10 in order to prevent or minimize future harms to ourselves or others. We do Step 10 to honor the direct amends we made in the prior step. This is the setup for the second half of the step. And when we were wrong, promptly admitted it. When we were wrong means when we acted out on our character defects, such as fear, anger, resentment, or self-centeredness. We need to admit it, at a minimum to ourselves, but if you follow the guidelines of Step 5, then you would admit it to God, to yourself, and to another human being, such as your sponsor. Step 10 does not specifically mention making amends, but it may be warranted. Step 10 does not specifically mention asking God, once again, to remove this defect, but it may be warranted. In fact, to properly do a Step 10, one should run the incident through Steps 5 through 9. Actually, one should run it through all the steps, 1 through 12, which is consistent with what is suggested in Step 12, to practice these principles, steps, in all of our affairs. This is how the steps work. They work together, not in isolation. Capiche? Capito? Okay, now let's turn to the Tony A steps, which have a different common thread. Instead of character defects, which need to be removed, we're dealing with emotional wounds from childhood that need to be healed. The 14 traits, as outlined in the laundry list, are precisely what Step 1 is referring to when it says, we admitted we are powerless over the effects of living with alcoholism and that our lives had become unmanageable. The effects are the 14 traits. The 14 traits are what make our lives unmanageable, and each trait points back to emotional wounds from childhood. The aim of the Tony A steps is to heal these emotional wounds through self-love. In Step 3, we make a decision to practice self-love, which for ACAs is easier said than done. In Step 5, we admit the exact nature of our childhood abandonment. This helps us understand the exact nature of our wounded inner child, as well as the defense mechanisms and survival traits we develop to protect it. This makes us ready and willing to begin the healing process with the aid of our higher power, Steps 6 and 7, which culminates in becoming willing to accept our own unconditional love by understanding that our higher power loves us unconditionally. Step 9. Self-love is the healing process. Practicing it mends the wounded inner child and, consequently, dials down survival traits, making our lives more manageable and enjoyable. Within this context, continue to take personal inventory takes on a different meaning. Because it's a check on the prior steps, Tony A. Step 10 is primarily concerned with, in my opinion, two things. One, are we acting out on the traits? And two, are we practicing self-love? In other words, the problem and the solution. Then, regardless of what the inventory reveals, we are to love and approve of ourselves. This sounds a lot like unconditional love. Step 9, the prior step, makes us willing to accept our own unconditional love. Step 10 puts it into action. Willingness without action is fantasy. Self-love must be practiced. Step 10 is our daily reminder to do so. For those willing to do the work, ACA has some excellent resources. The yellow Steps Workbook will guide you through the process of working the steps, both versions. And the Laundry List Workbook and Loving Parent Guidebook will help you better understand the problem and the solution, which are the focus of Tony A. Step 10. I consider these three workbooks to be the trifecta of ACA recovery. And that wraps up this video, which was meant to be food for thought. If you got something out of it, please click like and subscribe and forward to a fellow traveler. I'm Robbie Bobby. Thank you for listening, and as always, keep coming back.